Uh, I've been playing with this idea of being available to it, to the universe, to the whatever the energy, which could mean the same thing as you mean by noticing, although it sounds more passive. But I find if I kind of just allow myself to be available to whatever the energy is, I'm more. It's easier for me not to get caught up in my idea of what it is. What do you think about that?
Is it possible to not be available? What would not being available look like?
Well, my experience is that when I'm involved in following the story, whatever is going on in my imaginings of what is happening, I feel like I'm not available to what is really happening. I mean, I noticed that distinctly when I stopped doing it, and all of a sudden, there's all this stuff happening that must have been happening before, but I didn't even notice. So maybe it's just a trick of awareness, but it seems to be helpful to me.
Yeah. Well, tricks of awareness is really what we're playing with, because obviously this awareness is a constant, or there would be no experience. Experience occurs in awareness, so awareness is necessary for experience, and experience, of course, is non-stop. And yet, we have this interesting condition, as you pointed out, where there seems to be stories and getting sucked into interpretations, which seems to somehow, in an interesting way, limit awareness of the other field of presence, and then and the contrary of that in various degrees in between and all. And this is all very interesting. And yet, the point is not to achieve one condition or another, but to become very intimately familiar with what all these conditions actually consist of. It's not a matter of not being in story versus being in story. It's a matter of, well, what exactly is being in story? What exactly is being available? What are they made of? Where are they happening? How do they occur? But the path of investigating that is exactly to notice these aspects and try and get more of a bird's eye view of these phenomena and notice them as they come and go and as they have their play, and intuit what's really going on, intuit the common denominator elements that are always in effect, so to speak. Yeah, sure. But playing with this and noticing this and moving in and out of these conditions is what this exploration looks like.
So it's even noticing how that is, how you're experiencing it, noticing the play of becoming involved or not, or what that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting fact is what is experience, not a gamesmanship of playing this quality of experience off against that quality of experience as superior or more open or more true, even though it may be in some, according to some sort of parameters. But what is it that's going on? And you can't really be competent to assess different qualities of experience until you discover what experience really is. And then from that perspective, if it seems relevant, then you're empowered, you're self-authorized to make meaningful assessments because you have the context. But until then, it's just an exploration of, well, this is interesting, that's interesting, this is interesting, and through these maneuverings and these investigations, we get more and more of a sense of what this actually is. So yeah, long-windedly. So yeah, the point is, yeah, by all means, but the point again isn't to play one condition off against another, but to explore these conditions as an investigation into what the heck is going on.
Thank you.
What the heck is going on?
Yes, that's a good question. Find the answer.
When you say experience, are you talking experience anything at all? Like when you use the word experience?
I use the word experience to refer to everything that is. We could say experience is synonymous with being. Experience is synonymous with isness. Experience is synonymous with reality. And we know this empirically because if someone tells you, oh, Hitler's been resurrected and he just landed an army and they're marching up, Shattuck Avenue, you can say, well, I have no experience of that, so I think that's not true. On the other hand, if you go out and you look and you see and there's Hitler leading an army of goose steppers down Shattuck Avenue, you can say, oh, I have experience of that, so that may be true. So experience is, we always have a very simple gut reaction, empirical gauge of reality in terms of experience. If you haven't experienced it, you don't necessarily accept something as true. Whereas if you have experienced it, that's the touchstone of truth. Seeing is believing is another simple phrase that includes this idea. So then the interesting question is, okay, so experience is our touchstone of reality. What exactly is experience? And it's a meaningful question because we have it right here, so we have access to it. We can examine it. We can poke it and prod it. We can experiment with it.
So right now, for instance, what would be a way of examining this experience?
Anyway, we're examining it right now. By talking about it, by considering it, by pointing out different aspects of it, we are inviting or directing or suggesting our intelligence to apply itself to the issue in whatever way that inspiration seems to strike, and that constitutes investigation. But anything constitutes investigation. The bottom line is we don't know what this is. We do not know what this is. We've never been accurately told what this is. You can't go to the library and find a book and say, okay, where's the ultimate authority that's going to tell me what this is? It's not going to happen. And so that's very interesting. And yet we may have just a sort of an unexamined assumption. Yeah, it's experience. Sure, I know what experience is. It's experience, right? You experience, don't you? Yeah, sure, I experience. Yeah, we know what it is. But that kind of a simplistic assumption or just sort of checking it off and ignoring it, does it really stand up? When you really look, when the chips are down, it's like, okay, what is this? What is going on here? And that's the interesting question. Yeah. And there are many ways to ask it, there are many ways to explore it, and it's up to genius and inspiration and intelligence to find the meaningful avenues. But fortunately, we are equipped to explore what experience is because we are experience itself. So whatever degrees of subtlety or fineness or transcendence or astoundingness experience includes, we also include, so we can meet it where it is. It's not like we're on the outside looking in. We are it, so we have access to all of its tricks, all of its powers, all of its modes, because they are our tricks, powers, and modes, so we can bring this to bear. And the trick is to relax, get out of the way, and let ourselves do the superhuman, because we are superhuman. We have access to superhuman powers and abilities because we are superhuman. What this is superhuman. In terms of the sort of normal, traditional, call it man on the street understanding of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
What you are is what this is. And what this is reality itself. It's the universe itself. It's the fundamental being in all of its intricacy and its inconceivable power and order and intelligence and interconnectedness, and you are that, so you have access to all that. When you let yourself be that non-linear being that this is, that you are. And it's a trick, it's a catch-22, because of course we've all been brainwashed to believe that we're a little human being and we're stupid and I may be intelligent, but I'm not I can't organize atoms, I can't do gravity, I can't make light shine. And yet we are exactly what is organizing atoms and doing gravity and making light shine. So to bridge that gap, to escape from this imaginary paradigm where we think of ourselves as small and limited, and thereby have access to the vastness and inconceivable functionality that we actually are, requires some trickery, perhaps. Hence all this discussion.
Thank you.
Well, when you're talking about experience, it almost sounds like you're coming close to presence. Could you say the difference between experience and presence?
No, I couldn't possibly say the difference between them. I can't say the difference between experience and anything, because anything whatsoever that exists, according to my definition, is experience. So therefore there's zero difference. So if there's presence, then it is experience. If there's absence, it's experience. If there's focus, it's experience. If there's distraction, it's experience. So there's no difference between any of those qualities whatsoever and experience.
Okay. Next question. Does anything ever happen in the universe that God does not want to happen?
No.
Okay.
Simple truth. Couldn't be simpler, really. I think it's pretty obvious, too, if you think about it.
It's getting obvious.
That's a nice sound.
Yeah.
Peter, I was just thinking about how easy it is. Sometimes I'll go, why can't I see it, or what am I doing? That kind of, why am I not seeing it? Whereas it's like, well, it's right here.
Sure.
And I can spin on that, like, what can I do to see it, or why, what's wrong, or what am I not doing right, or just that whole infinite spin. Whereas I just go, like you say a billion times, go to the energy, and it's just like so. Just go there, and then it tells me all of it. It answers all my questions. It's so
and of course,
easy.
the spin, the spin and not seeing it is, of course, seeing it, because the spin is it. When you're seeing the spin, you're seeing it. So, as you say, when you're spinning and you're not seeing it, look and see what the spinning and not seeing it actually is, and lo and behold, that's it. There's nothing that's not it. It has no opposite. It has no not. It has no not it. Not it is not a meaningful category. So anything whatsoever is it. So anything whatsoever is a direct conduit to the Absolute. Is the Absolute itself. Is food for investigation, food for inquiry, food for enjoyment.
Thank you.
This is a very important point. Like was brought up earlier. We're so used to playing off one condition against another, one state of consciousness against another. Oh, this isn't it. Gosh, I wish I could get to it. Oh, this is suffering. Gosh, I wish I could get to peace. Oh, this is confusion. Gosh, I wish I could get to clarity. But what is this confusion made of? What is this suffering made of? What are these conditions made of? When you look at what they're made of, they couldn't appear if they were not made of reality. How can unreality appear? What substance would it consist of? What would be perceiving it? It's an impossibility. Anything that appears is real. So anything that appears is reality. So anything that appears will reveal reality. So you don't need to have a state and a condition you're in, and oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? I've been like this for 20 years, and I'm going to be for 20 more, and my life sucks, and I'll just kill myself if I can't get out of this condition. You're wanting to get out of reality. You're wanting to get out of reality. Just see what it is, and it will reveal itself to be essentially radiant light. Actually, literally radiant light. Literally radiant light. There's nothing else. We have a genius for turning radiant light into problems, for turning radiant light into suffering. It's a true gift. It's a real power. Yeah.
Peter, I've asked this question many times, and I'm going to ask you again, because every time you answer it, I get a little bit more. I'm interested in knowing what is perfect clarity.
That's a good thing to want to know. What is perfect clarity? Well, of course, the easy answer is this is perfect clarity. A more technical answer might be that perfect clarity is the fact that this entirely and completely does not obscure itself. This entirely and completely is nakedly revealed to itself. In other words, reality never gets in the way of itself. Reality appears, let's say, to awareness in perfect clarity. It's as if there's an absolutely perfectly clear window that all experience is seen through. And regardless of the quality of the experience, it always appears with equal clarity. Horror and suffering and confusion and emotionality appear with perfect clarity. And openness and understanding and inspiration appear with perfect clarity. So perfect clarity is the common denominator. It's the basic condition of reality.
So would one also consider the energy perfect clarity? Everything around us is energy.
Yeah.
So that would be perfect clarity.
Yeah, energy is just a euphemism for what this is. So certainly it appears in perfect clarity, and perfect clarity is an attribute of it. There are no parts. It's not like there's energy and there's over here and perfect clarity over here. We sort of deconstruct it and talk about it as maybe analyze it in terms of these various qualities, but these qualities are qualities of one thing. It's meaningful to look at this as a radiant energy, or a radiant light. It's meaningful to look at this as a perfect clarity. It's meaningful to look at this as consciousness. It's meaningful to look at this as awareness. It's meaningful to look at this as absolutely nothing at all. And yet it's not like these are all separate things. These are just modes of analysis which do not completely capture what this is, but may meaningfully indicate aspects of its behavior, of its functioning, of how it appears.
Thank you.
This is one thing, and it's nothing. It's not a thing, but it's one thing. What is it? Here it is. What is it? What is this? It's very simple. What is this? Don't think about it. Just, what is it? Right now, what is it? Can't say, but it sure is what it is.
So I'm just sitting here. Normally I look out at what I consider the environment, and I see that and try to see that in terms of just energy presentation, but I don't, a lot of times I don't include myself in that, my body in that. Mm-hmm. It's just more outside. But then when I include my body in that, I realize that it's, that's part of this energy presentation too. Mm-hmm. And it seems like my body's just sitting there going, I don't know what this is. I don't know what my body is. Mm-hmm. Just like I don't know what anything here in the room is either. But I don't know what this supposed body is either. But I know it's like whatever I'm supposedly seeing out there, it's just a kind of an energy presentation that's here and gone. But it has this funny sort of question mark all the time, like, I don't know what's happening here. Mm-hmm. And that's just the expression of the energy itself. I don't know. Is that right?
Yes. The I don't know is an expression of the energy itself. But it's complicated by the fantasy that there's a what. So when you feel I don't know what this is, there's a subtle fantasy that there is an answer to that question. There's a what, and you're not knowing it.
Right.
Whereas in actual fact there is no what, and
yes.
The not knowing is what it is. The indeterminacy is what it is.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just this, and you cannot say what it is there because there's no what.
Right.
It's not like there's an answer to the question and you're not getting it.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a confusion that could be resolved with a solution. The confusion is the solution. The confusion is the final condition. The indeterminacy is the final condition.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny that it would show up that way. It's just sort of a giant question mark. Because it sort of leads you to think, oh, there must be an answer to that.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like, I mean, it seems like incomplete in a way. Like
It is incomplete. It's fundamentally indeterminate. It's infinite.
Yeah.
It's infinity. Infinity has no solution.
Yeah, right.
Infinity has no final version. Infinity isn't, well, it's infinity, but the answer is 27 3/4.
Yeah.
It's infinity, there's no answer. So you look at infinity and say, well, what is it? It's exactly itself, but there's no answer. It's indeterminacy itself.
Yeah.
This is infinity, and no one can say what it is. And yet it's exactly infinity.
Yeah. I mean, the if you could say energy in and of itself, that energy of just,
Yeah.
I mean, that energy itself is just a
Yeah.
flavor of the thing.
Is just a lazy man's om. And that's all there is. What is om? What is om? This is om. This is nothing but om. This is the totality. Om is the totality of what this is. You can't say what it is. It's itself. But you don't need to say what it is because you have it. You don't need to say it, and there's no one to say it to. There's just it.
Yeah, right. And also the idea of me as some separate thing here is just, it couldn't be. That can't be either. You know, just like this room can't be, or any object can't be. I can't be either. I mean, even that is just for the moment. It's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Or,
And then when you look where there is, you get more indeterminacy.
Right.
Are we pissing off the online people? Oh, good. Seems to be our standard MO here.
So, Peter, then it seems to me that searching for what is also what is searching. In other words, you almost can't get out of it. Search itself is what is. And I mean, it's like a circle jerk. I mean, it's sort of a snake eating its tail. It seems you can't get away from it, from what is. So
There's no almost about it.
And it's so amazing that while in the midst of it and just not being able to get away from it for a split second, we still keep on looking for it, and it's just mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What this is mind-boggling. And it's the very nature of what this is to be looking for itself. That's what experience is. Experience is it looking for itself. So naturally, when we may feel like we're doing it and we're looking for it, but this is just a resonance within our personalization of this phenomena of the fundamental fact, which is that it is looking at itself interminably, ongoingly. That's actually what's happening here. It's the only thing that's happening here, is it looking at itself. And of course it never gets a final version. It always finds itself, but it never finds a definitive itself.
Kind of like a sacred circle jerk.
The sacred circle jerk.
Sorry.
No, there's one of the earliest Egyptian creation myths has the absolute God who alone exists masturbating, and the orgasm produces reality. So this is what's precedent.
Thank you.
You're not to blame. You can point the finger. You can say, blame it on them. There's nothing whatsoever that is not sacred. Not sacred is completely meaningless. In a profound sense, sacred is also completely meaningless. Because it's this. There's no... Sacredness only has meaning in the face of non-sacredness and vice versa. When
Right.
it's just this, how would you measure? And
Right.
yet, this is literally and completely the absolute. And there is nothing other than that. So it may or may not be sacred, but it is certainly absolute.
Right.
Everything is absolutely absolute, period. And nothing deviates from this absolute condition of absoluteness. Because that's what there is, period.
Right. And seeing that has got to be your satisfaction, because there's not going to be any other satisfaction.
If that doesn't do it for you, dude, you got high standards. You're really picky.
Right. No, I see that.
Yeah, it itself is its own satisfaction. When this sees that it's seeing itself, when that really clicks in the Zohar, in Kabbalah, there's an image of the greater countenance and the lesser countenance, and it's said that at one point the greater countenance sees the lesser countenance, and they see that they're seeing each other. And this is the resolution, this is illumination, this is realization. It's the resolution of the dilemma, because God is looking and doesn't realize what it's looking at, and when it realizes it's essentially looking in a mirror, that is the solution of the dilemma. Because the only dilemma, the only question is God wondering to itself, what am I looking at? What am I looking at here? And the only answer is, I'm looking at myself. And that is the answer. That's the final solution. That's the end. That's the...
It's interesting because it's not a human satisfaction that you might imagine.
No, of course not.
It's different.
And yet
it's like a transhuman satisfaction.
Of course, but we are transhuman. The only genuine satisfaction we can ever find will have to be beyond humanity, because we are beyond humanity. Any human satisfaction we find will only scratch a very small part of our itch, because our itch is not a human itch. We may think it is, but it isn't really, because we are more than that.
That's far out. Send this up there.
That's a good point, though, because this is why satisfaction is never satisfying. You can find a billionaire and find someone that's incredibly handsome and is going to live forever and is married to movie stars and blah 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 blah, and find out if they're just like totally blissfully happy. I betcha that there's still some kind of niggling dissatisfaction in there. Because human achievement will not satisfy superhuman questing, superhuman searching. The only thing that satisfies superhuman searching is superhuman finding. And fortunately, what's looking is superhuman, but what is to be found is superhuman, so this is actually doable. But think big. Don't settle for riches and health and beauty. Lay not up your treasures where rust doth corrupt.
So on the one hand, when I hear you saying this, I really enjoy it. But on the other hand, it sounds a little like catechism to me. It sounds like you're making statements that I don't know, I don't experience. So it sounds like accepting a belief from you, because you're making clear, absolute statements as if they're facts that you've experienced.
Right.
But I can't really talk that clearly or honestly from my own authentic experience,
Right.
including statements that you make around radiant light, that everything is radiant energy or light. I have no idea. I mean, it sounds nice, but it has no bearing on my experience.
Right.
So I don't know what to do with it other than just feel I'm hearing someone lecture or talk.
Right.
And so I just wanted to say that to kind of connect with you, you know?
No, for sure.
I mean, I enjoy it, and I'd like to have more of a first-hand
Yeah. Oh, I can talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like you to.
The entire point of this event is not for me to sit up here and spout things that are absolute truth, and for you to sit there and listen and go, "Oh, wow, great, he said it. It must be true. Cool. I'm going to go home and, be satisfied that I've heard truth." That's not the point at all. Whether or not what I'm saying is true, that doesn't do you any good at all.
Right.
So the only thing that does you any good is to find out for yourself what is true, to the extent of your capacity to do so. And so this discussion is intended as an invitation to investigate some of these propositions for yourself. And a certain amount of this discussion includes discussion of tricks, discussions of ways of looking at this, discussions of things to explore, that you can then, if you feel motivated or feel inspired, play with these things for yourself and see if you can find within your own experience something there of interest, of value. But I absolutely agree with you. This is, if you're just sitting there listening to words of wisdom, it's absolutely pointless. You may as well be out having a beer or watching TV or something.
Well, see, my experience is watching TV and drinking the beer.
Right.
It's more like an ordinary gross level, day-to-day, grunt level experience.
Sure.
And then this is, I have an appetite for this, but it still seems honestly removed from my actual experience.
Right.
And
So
habits.
what would behoove you, if you're interested in this, is to find at the boundary of your actual achievable experience that tends towards this direction, see what's there and push the envelope or explore that. But again, not leaping off into fantasy or leaping off into he said or this book said or something like that, or philosophy. But in terms of, well, let's see, what do I experiencing? And in terms of, this is interesting, in terms of going in this direction, where in my experience can I find anything even remotely like this, and what's going on there? And then you're playing within your own experience. You're grounded in the reality of your experience, and that alone, of course, will be of value to you. What I say is going to be of no value to you whatsoever. Who cares? Well, some book says, what does that do you?
Yeah.
What does you good is what you can find in your own experience. But the message I'm trying to convey, and I hope I succeed, is that it is possible to investigate our experience, and it is certainly, I will say it's a fact, but I invite you to find out for yourself. I will say it's likely that it's possible for you to discover that your experience is more than you are currently used to thinking it is. And this is an invitation to discover that more. And in that more, there is an opportunity for growth, there is an opportunity for discovery, there may be an opportunity for revelation. But by all means, I agree with you completely. Yeah, it's about your experience. It's about you exploring your experience for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'll talk a little bit about radiance, if you like. Not philosophically, but it's a practical invitation for you to consider some notions in your own experience. For example, when you dream at night, the dream appears actively. You don't have to go to the dream. The dream sort of shines, let's say, metaphorically speaking, into your awareness. So it's like a movie is being projected into your awareness. Let's just say, arbitrarily, as a kind of a model to play with. And this is the kind of quality of radiance that I'm referring to, is that our experience, reality, presents itself actively. You don't have to see your field of vision, you don't have to go to it. It is coming to you. It's literally shining into your awareness. Let's just calling it, I'm making up these names. We don't need to be too specific about exactly what we're talking about or define our terms, but just generally speaking, there's a dynamism by which our experience appears to us actively. And we can see this very clearly in a dream, and we can also see it clearly in our waking experience. The field of vision is present dynamically. The field of sound is present dynamically. The field of touch is present. You can't turn it off. It comes to you. It's jumping out. You could say it cries out. Speaking poetically. And this kind of quality of activity, of quality of a dynamic presence, is what I refer to with this word radiance. And I use the word light metaphorically to indicate that what it is that is present as our experience is a subtle, you might call it a subtle radiation. Like in our field of vision, of course, it is literally light. We don't see objects, we actually see light. And we impute the objects depending upon the shape and color and contrast of the light. But clearly we see light. You shine, you look at a person, you see a pattern of light. You look at a photograph of a person, you see a pattern of light. And yet the two are not the same, and yet they might look the same if it's a very high quality photograph. So this illustrates that we're seeing light, we're not seeing objects. Likewise, in sensation, if you experience your sense of touch very carefully, you'll notice it's a kind of a tingling presence. It has a dynamic, energetic presence that is. It has words fail, but it has a sparkling, dynamic quality that could be thought of as a kind of a radiance or a kind of a light or a kind of a undefinable, we don't have words for this, some kind of an energetic presence. Likewise, sound is a dynamic, vibrant, energetic presence in our consciousness, and so on and so forth. So anyway, the point of this isn't to be dogmatic that, there's, radiant light and this is there. The point is to indicate that our experience consists of this fascinatingly subtle, dynamic presence in real time. I don't mean abstractly, I don't mean as a philosophy, but I mean if we really look at what we're experiencing, how we're experiencing in real time, it's trippy, it's interesting. What it is, it's showing up as vision, as sound, as touch, as thought. Thought is really trippy. Look at what, you're thinking thoughts are here, you say, the thoughts in my mind, but thoughts have a substance. Something's appearing when you're thinking, it's very subtle, it's like the Northern Lights or something, God knows what it is or where it is or how it works, but it's just this astounding, something's there, something's going on. What is this something? And again, the point is not to be dogmatic and say what these things are, but to invite inquiry, to notice that, wow, I can really go to these experiences with fresh eyes, so to speak, and really see some nuance there that I'm not used to noticing because it's the same old, yeah, I'm thinking, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, who cares? But when it's possible to look at these things and notice, wow, there's some subtlety here, there's some nuance here. It's trippy, it's interesting, and it may even lead to perception of more nuance and more subtlety. So that's the point of that kind of a reference.
I was somehow, when I hear radiant light, for example, I was feeling turned off because I feel like, this guy's saying psychedelic, hallucinogenic, breakdowns of atoms and energy, and I'm not, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But the way you're saying it now, it gives me more of an in.
Yeah.
it's a little less fixed or solid. It's not
Right.
an object of radiant light.
Yeah.
Like radiant light, it's just
Yeah.
looking into things and seeing
Yeah, exactly.
the possibility of
Yeah. It's
something other than just a name.
Yeah, it's intended to be an invitation to explore. It's not intended to be dogma or, oh wow, hallucinate or something. It's just an invitation to notice, wow, it's really, what's going on here is maybe more interesting than we're used to noticing, and we can play with that, we can explore that, we can dip our toe into those waters, and it can be a very interesting and possibly rewarding investigation.
Thank you.
Peter, there's a question from the chat room. Somebody asked the question, what is this God that you speak of?
Well, that's a good question, and I would say find out. What is it? That's a very good question. But rather than phrase it in terms of what is God, which sounds very abstract and highfalutin, I would say, what is this that's right in front of your eyes? Because that's something you can actually look at. And they turn out to be the same question, and the answer will be the same answer. I mean, you'd think that's doable. What is this that's right in front of your eyes? What is this that's right in front of your eyes? I mean, it's a pretty simple and direct and specific question. It's not abstract at all. It's supremely concrete. But what is this that's right in front of your eyes? And the investigation is not to go into abstraction, but to go into the concreteness. What is this? What is it that's concrete? What is it that's present? How is it present? This is very simple, very direct, immediately present, immediately observable. You'd think that would be a doable investigation. Experience is concretely present. It's the only thing whatsoever that is concretely present. So this is the point, not to go into abstraction, not to go into thought, not to go into analysis, but what is it that is concretely present? In what way is it concretely present? This is very reality-based. It's ultimately reality-based, and it's not about using reality as a spin-off into philosophy and abstraction. It's about just stay with the reality, and well, what is it? What is this reality that's right here, concretely present?
I have a question, Peter. You talk about abstraction, so I've thought about what is and abstraction or thought, and anything. And as I understand it, anything that I could think is an abstraction and not reality.
Anything that you can think is an abstraction, yes, but thought itself is a reality.
Okay, then, what are we discriminating? In other words, be with the energy.
Discriminate what is in the way that it is, not what is in the way you may imagine it is. In other words, discriminate between imagination and actuality. And imagination, of course, is an actuality as an occurrence, but it is not an actuality as a definition, as an accurate description, as a reference. Did that make sense? Did you follow that?
I have to ponder it.
The delightful sound of chai flowing into cups does my heart good.
So we have another question from the chat room.
Uh-huh.
She's asking, is radiant light really uniform in essence, or does it have some qualities that allow the inherent intelligence to differentiate between patterns?
Both. It turns out that and again don't just take this as dogma from me, I invite you to investigate for yourself, but I suggest if you do, you may discover that the radiant presence is infinitely differentiated within itself, infinitely patterned fractally on all levels, and infinitely capable of seeing itself, so to speak, with regards to these various patterns that can seem to occur within it. But in actual fact, there's no patterning, and even as there is absolute differentiation. But again, don't take that as dogma. Look for yourself and see if that's true. But if you go to the end of the book, that may be what you find there. Yeah, we have one up here.
I have a friend who's 75, and he's at Kaiser Acute Care in San Leandro for a knee replacement that he had done a few days ago, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I visited him, and he's bummed out. He's really feeling discouraged, and he was saying that he kind of thinks he made a mistake. He wish he hadn't done it. Because he's going through all the stuff that you would go through with something that's difficult, you know. He doesn't feel like he can walk or do the exercises, and things aren't the way he'd like.
Right.
Can you somehow help me tie this into our conversation about reality is, I think you could use the word, I don't like the word God, but it's God, or it's all it is, or it's reality is reality.
Yeah, reality is real.
Reality is reality.
Agree on that.
But he doesn't like the reality. I mean, most human beings have that position that they don't like what's happening.
Right.
So is there any way you can kind of make our conversation a little practical? I'm not sure how to do it, but Does this consciousness that's encapsulated in individual little meat bodies that are looking at experience and saying they don't like it, which causes more pain, but the fact is there is an experience of real pain and disappointment that he can't seem to get around.
Right.
Can you flesh it out a little bit for me? I'm not sure what I may have been asking, but...
It's okay, we'll play with it and I'll see if I can. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. We can try.
Yeah.
Disappointment comes when we think our conditions are not the way we wish they were, which has two elements to it. First of all is the element that we think we know what the conditions are that are present, and second is the element of the fantasy of how we would like them to be. How we would like things to be is easy. We want them to be the way we want them to be. Fine. But the question is, do we really know what the conditions that are present actually are? And this, I would say, is where we can make headway. Because again, I think it's possible that we have simplistic ideas about what our situation is. In other words, we're believing our own narration, we're believing our own stories, we're believing our own interpretation of events. And it's not that these interpretations are necessarily wholly untrue, but they may be incomplete. They may be inaccurate. And this incompleteness and this inaccuracy may, if we investigate it, may open to elements that will show us that the situation is perhaps different than we thought it was, perhaps even drastically different than we thought it was. And only if you really know what's going on can you be qualified to wish it was different. In other words, if you have an inaccurate take on what's going on, you wish it would be different, what's the point? Because it may be different, and you don't have an active, a practical awareness of that fact.
He's going by his own experience.
Of course.
But you're saying his experience may be limited or distorted in some way.
Exactly so. Our experience may be limited or distorted by our tendency to believe our own interpretations, to believe our own stories, to believe our own narrations about what's going on. And these narrations and stories will inevitably exclude facts of which we're unaware, and facts of which that are more complex or subtle than can be included in the simplistic degree of our narration, just according to the terms we're using. If we have a language or a story or something, it's a story. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So here's our actual experience. There's a picture, let's say, and our stories are 20 words, 50 words, 100 words. You can't capture the picture in 50 words or 100 words. And yet we do this. We say, oh damn, here I am and this and that and this and that and this is going on. I wish it was this and that and this.
Right.
Well, yeah, it may be that this and that and this are going on, but it may be also that there's many, many more things that are going on concurrently that are not being included in that narration that may actually profoundly shift our understanding of what actually is happening. And so...
You mean like the sun is shining?
Yeah. The sun is shining. The birds are
Along
singing.
with my knee hurting.
Along with my knee hurting, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, this is up to our ability and our artifice and our motivation to explore these things.
It's about attention, where you can put your attention, I think.
Yes, certainly. That's a big factor. I mean, noticing that we can shift our attention, noticing that we can be aware of other aspects of our experience, and in so doing, we may discover we've been fixating and experiencing a smaller version of our experience than we need to, and maybe perhaps if we experience a larger version or a more various version by letting our attention be more mobile, we may discover we're in a much more rich experience, a rich situation than we were acknowledging before. And again, but these are something to play with, because again, it doesn't do any good to hear someone else say this. You have to, discover this for yourself, for it to be meaningful, or for it to be useful, or for it to be empowering to you. It has to be a part of your real experience, of course.
If I offered this to John, I would think that he might be pissed off or annoyed. He'd be resistant. He doesn't want to hear about it. This is real.
Sure.
I don't want to hear about all this
Yeah.
Opening up your experience, and
Yeah.
he would just fight or be annoyed that you'd even bring up something different than his experience.
Well,
and I think that's common.
Certainly, I think so. I think many people are attached to their version of things, and this is fine. If you are, then you are, and that's okay. That's a viable mode of functioning. But that mode of functioning has some obvious disadvantages. Not the least of which being the dichotomy as you described it, where he thinks the situation is a certain way and he wishes it was some other certain way, and he's frustrated and pissed off and suffering.
And that's where.
So if you're locked into that, if that's how it is, and you aren't willing to go elsewhere, then that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So that's viable. I mean, a lot of people live like that. We've all been there, to various degrees, one degree or another, and so we know that's doable. But the interesting fact is there may be alternatives, and if, again, as you point out, if you have the wherewithal to even entertain or consider the possibility, let alone explore it or play with it or look into it on any level whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Come on, out with it. Don't be shy. Take the hot seat.
Something about you were saying differentiation or something. So I was just going to say, almost like this plant behind you is taking its own form, like it's all over. It's what it is, and then the flowers kind of show up the way they show up,
right.
and you show up the way you show up. Something I can't remember. That was what was on my mind to ask
Sure.
you about when you were talking about.
Right.
I think the question was from online, something about God or something about how it shows up.
Well, what would your question be for you? What about all of that milieu interests you, or do you find perplexing?
The infinite, more like the infinite ways that it shows up.
Right.
The infinite manifestations of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Well, let's look at this. Look at your experience in real time. Let's just take your field of vision right now. If you look at your field of vision, just take it as a full field of light. We call it light vision present in your consciousness. If you look closely, you'll notice every single point, every single pixel, let's call it, is different color than every other single pixel. You can't find two identical colors anywhere you look. Okay, so you notice that right away. And then if you look at any one pixel, you'll notice that pixel is different than itself in the next instant. Maybe in subtle ways, but noticeably different.
For instance, I can't see that. Like, let's say I look at the tip of that plant, and
Right.
there's a yellowish tinge to it.
Right.
I'm looking from here, so maybe, I'm not sure that that's changed.
You're not sure it hasn't either, are you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
The fact is, if you sit, instead of looking at details, just look at the full field. In other words, don't look at me or the plant or the microphone. Just look at, from here to wall, all at once.
Okay.
And just sort of sit with that for now, let time pass, sit with the full field. Be
Okay.
aware of the
Yeah.
edges as well
Yeah.
as the present, and sit with it. And notice how it's